Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully well, hopefully well. I hope you all got some lovely, lovely sleep. Every single one of you. Morning, Tiger. Morning, Pinky. Good morning, Shiny, whatever. Now, 1 second. I think a high-speed chase just drove by my place. That was weird. My bad. Alright. So let's take a look. Wait a second. 1 second. Alright, I'm trying to keep things, calm and 1 second again, jeez. Okay, we're actually here now. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. All I heard was the rev of some sort of engine, and if I hear this one more time, I'm going to freak out. What are they doing? I think we're good. Now I'm getting paranoid that I hear it. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's one thing to, hear one siren go by and be like, okay, I can mute real quick. It's another to hear so many come by over and over and over again. It makes you start wondering if something's going on. And actually, let's take a quick look. Hmm. Hmm. Alright, doesn't look like there's anything. See, I don't live near a fire station. That would be one thing. I wouldn't mind that. I'd be expecting these noises, but to hear increasing sirens and then the rev of an engine is like crazy. Okay, but I'm here. So first off, thank you so much for getting first Anya, and then for losing first to Calypsy, and Calypsy losing it to Pinky, and Pinky losing it to Shiny. Shiny, congratulations on actually being first. Taiga, thank you for being second. And then to curse you for being too greedy and also taking third. And pronouns, I. Translax. I go by he, they. Chat, what pronouns do you use? Mm-hmm. I understand you, Leo. Mm-hmm. She, they. Just live right by the train. Nice. He, they, whatever. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing my 69 streak. So, unfortunately, I am very, very tired, so you might have to bear with me yawning a lot. I believe we are in the ASMR category still, correct? And so, we are going to be talking about the last D&D session. For those of you who were here last time, can you all tell me what you remember happening? Or does nobody remember? It has been over a week, so we might be a little behind. Thank you for the hug, Anya. I'm very, very out of it. Because I did the horrible, horrible, horrible misfortune of sleeping for 2 hours before my bedtime, immediately waking up, and my body going, oh, you had 2 hours of sleep, that means it must be time to get going. So none of my other sleep was very restful. Thank you for the bit, Anya. I always appreciate it. So, last time, the players had just fought an abomination outside of an inn. It'd been a mercenary who they had been looking in on, and they saw the way his body had warped and undulated, and then how he had started to transform. And the players had hopped into action, took the body, put it into a barrel, and thank you for the bits, Anya, and threw it outside of the tavern. And in doing so had only moved their problem into the rain. It transformed, exploded the barrel, which then shattered windows. The players had gone out and fought it, because it had immediately turned back. Good luck, Calypsy. Be careful. And the barrel had exploded, blown out the windows, and players had gone to fight the monstrosity because it had turned its attention to the tavern and looked like it was about to charge. The players had received help from a guard captain and a nearby member of the local church order, and had been able to take it down. I'm doing great, Patrick. How are you doing? Really? And just like the body of the cultist who they'd fought before, the abomination's form melted away until there's nothing left except a foul smell and lingering traces of magic that had been wrong. The priest and the guard have been arguing over a body. Good morning, M31. How you doing? And the body that seemed to be just a normal citizen. The church claimed that the body belonged to one of their religious order, but the guard captain claimed that the man had never been religious. And the players listened and decided to help out. And so they went with the guard captain to look at the body to see if there's any proof of any religious markings. And they found a religious symbol buried away in one of the dead man's pockets. One of the players quickly recognized that the pocket had been one that another guard had been looking in earlier that day, and so assumed that that religious symbol had been planted there. So, quickly thinking, one of the players lifted their lantern, blinded the priest as he was walking up, and they pocketed the religious symbol. Said the guard captain could claim, no markings here, which of course the guard captain was very grateful for. And the priest took it. Good morning, Kinky. Good morning, Cat. In stride. Before leaving into the storm, the players spoke with the guard captain, told them about the tavern keeper that had run off during the middle of the fight. And they spent the time looking through the tavern to where the innkeeper had been and found a vial that had matched the magical signatures of whatever had affected the mercenary, changing him into a monstrosity. They passed the vial to the guards, and then looked for a place to stay for the night. Earlier that night, they talked to a older woman who seemed very happy to gossip about the town and its sordid past. A little reminder of that part. Good morning, Casey. The old woman had been a gossip and had explained that the town had once been a mining-focused town, but after the Lord had gotten a bit too greedy, the miners had formed a union and fought against the Lord. The Lord eventually came to an agreement saying they could have their union and that he would go through the union as long as he still got his money for the taxes that he had to pay. He'd stay out of their business and they could elect their own mayor. And that the union had been fine at first, but had been demanding union dues from anyone who'd entered the town and had become more of a sort of gang instead of a proper workers' union. And they were at odds with both the Lord and the local religious order. And the town was split up between these three factions. One second. Okay, we're good. We're split up between these three factions. The northern portion, the northwestern portion, belonged to the church. The southwestern portion belonged to the union. And the portion to the east belonged to the Lord. Each one of these locations did have its own tavern. And so the party decided to go with the inn that belonged to the the union section. They had to travel across most of the town in the middle of the night with the rain still pouring, but when they arrived, it was a very, very clean tavern. almost too clean. It had been it felt like even the patrons there were so organized and put away that they would belong in any sort of library. And a peculiarity about the place, besides the lack of music and the general lack of smell of old ale or any sort of stickiness or grime, was that there were no chairs anywhere to be found, only places to stand. And so when the players had come there, one of the first questions I was asked was, if you don't have any chairs down here, do you have any beds in your rooms? Which had elicited a chuckle from the woman manning the front of the tavern. She'd worn a mask. And when one of the players had approached her, lying about who they were, she had seemed very, very skeptical and stood there, waiting for the truth. When one of them finally spoke the truth, she immediately identified each of them. Which was a bit unsettling for some of the players who thought keeping a low profile would be more to their benefit. There we go. And when they asked for the price, they said that the rooms would be on the house, as would any food. And so, players went up a ladder, as there was no staircase in this tavern, found their rooms, each getting an individual room, went about their nightly rituals, and went to sleep. Each having a different experience with that. The barn and was a vessel for something more, felt more empty than she ever had before, feeling as if there was something calling to fill the space inside of her from within this town. The druid, the astronomer, he felt more disconnected from the stars than he had ever had before, and as someone who was following a star that had called to him, it felt the most disconnecting for him. The other druid, the one whose family ran their own little mafia, felt the farthest away from home that they'd ever been. That though this place was not much different than other places they'd been before, it was still so out of the realm of what they were used to. The barbarian was the only one with positive feelings, as this was the first time they had had people they could rely on. And the last one, the changeling, who didn't realize it was a changeling, felt more a fraud though they did not know why. And the night passed with little issue. That was until the morning when the doll, the bard, woke up with a start. Thank you for the lyric. She suddenly had a lingering thought, and wouldn't tell me what that thought was, but she sprinted down the ladder, threw herself out the door from the inn, and sprinted through the mud and the lingering rain to the barn where they'd left their horses and mule the night before. And there, strapped to the side of the mule, was a goblin. A goblin that they had forgotten about, who hadn't been fed in a day or two, or been allowed to move. And as she approached, the goblin let out a pitiful groan. It had survived, eaten what food it could from the back of the mule when it would bend down to try to eat the scraps and the oats that had spilled out from a bag. And when she unbound the goblin, it fell flat on its face, its legs not functioning right away. This was Grimjaw, which some of you may have heard from the little TikTok I'd made. And she took the goblin and an old bag of feed, dumped out the rest of its contents, and pushed the goblin into the bag so she could carry him around. He didn't complain too much, and first wanting to be let go, but realizing his limbs weren't working the best. And so she took him back with them, all the way to the inn. Thank you for getting first year, Frosty. When she had gotten back, majority of the other players had already made their way down the ladder, spoken to the tavern keeper. It was somebody different this time. Instead of the woman from the night before, it was a more burly, muscular man who looked like he'd be more apt for cracking heads than running the bar. But they'd gone to him, each ordering a little bit of something. One wanting just oats and fruit, another wanting just a slice of toast with butter, another wanting meat, the barbarian of course, and the meat was brought out. And when the doll had arrived, Prissa, with the goblin in tow, the man had only glanced at the goblin, turned back to Prissa and said, "Is there anything you'd like to eat?" She had acted almost like the idea of having breakfast was foreign to her. And so the barkeep, the tavern owner, had thought to just bring her a standard breakfast fare. And they went to go talk to the rest of the party, who seemed more and more perturbed about the fact that this tavern was so accommodating and clean, and how odd the whole situation was. They had noticed that a man had been eavesdropping. The barbarian had gotten a bit upset and drove the man off before they went back and continued their conversation. Before their breakfast arrived, a man had knocked at the window. A man in gold and white armor that the party concluded was from the local church faction. And for some reason, instead of opening the window, they simply acted like they didn't know how to do it until their breakfasts arrived and the barkeep ran off the night. And then, instead of continuing and planning or having much conversation at all, they proceeded to baby the goblin, feeding him by hand. Good morning, Robin. Feeding the goblin by hand, asking if it was okay, trying to work some blood into its stiff limbs, until eventually it was doing better. Of course, this doesn't mean that he gets to leave the bag. No, they decided to keep him in the bag, for safekeeping. Because what if he would run away? We couldn't have that, could we? No, the players made Grimjaw stay in the bag. And the longer it went on, the more it seemed like he got used to it. Prissa just keeping him around whenever they went anywhere. Though I'm looking forward to making them roll at disadvantage for certain things because they're carrying a goblin wherever they go. Oh, good morning, Garmia. Only 10 minutes. Oh, you're not going to get to the best bit of the story. And they planned. Figured that what they wanted to do was figure out what had happened at that tavern last night. Good morning, Ishmael. And so, they went back to the tavern where the mercenary had transformed the night before. And, well, right, sorry. They'd walked up the side of the tavern, which, for those of you remember, the night prior, they had broken in through the side of the tavern door, the side tavern door, upsetting the tavern keeper. Not intentionally, of course, but more of it was the first door they saw, so they were like, this must be the right door. Well, when they returned there in the morning, two decided to take the side door to the front door, pushing in at the same time to make sure that if the tavern keeper was there, he couldn't escape. All they really did was startle the woman at the bar, the barmaid. Good morning, Gibbets. Who was more upset than surprised. She had also been waiting for the tavern keep to get back because she was owed pay for the night prior. But he hadn't shown. For some reason, though, she still felt obligated to show up. The only other person there was the old farmer who had been drunk the night before. Players had polite conversation with her, asked her some questions, did the best to interrogate without interrogating. And there didn't seem to be many answers. The tavern keeper had been a normal guy. There had been no issue with the mercenary before. and she let off no sign that she knew anything about what had happened. It was around then that a bell rang from upstairs. Oh, good morning, Spell. And the barmaid excused herself, went to the back. The doll barred Prissa followed the barmaid to the back. Careful, stealthily, to make sure she wasn't watched. The barmaid had gone into a box, pulled out an unmarked bottle, and a silver goblet, and placed it upon a very fancy silver tray, just the one goblet. And she took all of this upstairs. What she brought looked a lot nicer than anything else that they had in the tavern, and that alone set off alarm bells. Prissa, of course, had backed back away before the barmaid could notice her coming back, and waited till the barmaid headed up the stairs for him. Morning, Frieza. And good morning, Lynx. And as the barmaid went up the stairs, Prissa and Sylvia, the bard, not the bard, sorry, the druid, the mud druid. Good morning, wifey. And both went back to where the barmaid had been before. They snuck into the back room, took a quick look around. The other druid, Saloon, stood there, trying to check for any magical traces, while the barbarian apparently didn't get the memo, and seeing the barmaid go upstairs, waited a few seconds before sneaking up after her. Oh, good night. The barbarian did not roll the highest, but luckily he had waited enough time that the barmaid had already made it to where she wanted to go. On the second story, the barbarian noticed 5 doors, 4 doors, each in a pair across from each other across the hallway. Seemed like the standard fare you'd find in most inns. They matched each other, they lacked ordination, and they seemed to have a simple lock on the front. It could be opened with a simple key. And the barbarian, Asphodel. Have fun, Rengoku. Asphodel assumed those were your standard tavern rooms. And at the end, though, stood a tall, ornate door that seemed more to fit in an old manor than a tavern, especially one that had been so musty and sticky and smelling like old ale. Why does everybody apologize for being late? I need to make an automatic reply. It's okay to be late. There's not being late. I'm the one who's late. Y'all can come in whenever. You don't go to a coffee shop and apologize for not being there at opening, do you? Hi, Vanya. Y'all better not apologize to coffee shops for not being there at opening. That'd be insane. Hmm. All right, where were we? Goofy. Good morning, now, love. So, exactly. Apologize for showing up on time, chat. Oh, I forgot about that. Thank you for the follow. So, where were we? When Asphodel the Barbarian had reached the top of the stairs and he'd seen those doors and seen the very, very ornate door, he assumed the barmaid had walked behind that one, which he could almost confirm as he'd heard the lock being turned in the keyhole when he had gone through and it being relocked on the other side. He leaned his ear up against the door and heard as the metal tray was placed down and something was poured out into a goblet. While this was happening, the players downstairs were searching the little back room. Thank you for the follow. Oh, I see we're in the southern voice now. Thank you for the follow, pizza. It's greatly appreciated. Hope you're having a good morning. Now, the players who had been in the back room were inspecting the situation. And they didn't find anything at first, until they opened a crate, and inside was bottle upon bottle upon bottle of this unlabeled liquid. It was a dark bottle, and when it held up to the light, they could see a reddish hue coming through. The liquid was of varying thicknesses. The bottles that seemed to be the oldest, much thicker than the ones that were recently bottled. And along with those bottles was quite a few silver implements. Goblets, plates, forks, spoons, that sort of thing. And each one of the bottles were capped with a wax seal emblazoned with the initials LV. One of the players wanted to see what was in the bottle, and using a knife and heat metal, did her best to try to remove the wax without damaging the seal at the top. And unfortunately, got a bit too excited and broke the seal straight in half. It was really too late to go back, though. And so they moved to uncork the bottle. Upstairs, Asphodel had heard as footsteps were approaching the door and keys were removed. He snuck back into one of the adjacent rooms, closing the door as carefully as he could, and waited until he heard the big, ornate door swing open. There were footsteps, and the door locking, and the footsteps moved along the hallway. It was at this time that Saloon, the druid downstairs, heard the footsteps, and he went back and whispered to the Prissa and Sylvia, saying, "Y'all better be done there soon." She's coming back down. Press uncorked one of the bottles, and as she did, she felt a sense of magic and smelled a pungent aroma of iron, a smell she recognized, especially with a dark tinted liquid. She closed it, sealed it as best she could, rolling better to hide a mistake than she had, opening the bottle to begin with and hid it away. Good morning, John. And then as they were trying to come back out, they heard the voice of Saloon talking to the barmaid, doing his best to distract her. He kept her on the stairs, kept her distracted with any sort of parts of the magic he had. And boom, and both Prissa and Sylvia snuck out the side door, standing in the rain, trying to eavesdrop through the door. Thank you, thank you. Well, Saloon brought the barmaid to the bar, tried to intrigue her with his stories of stars and such. But these stories were not necessarily the things she was interested in. And he brought up the question of where a certain tower had been. You see, the night before they had been at the police station, the sheriff's office, and they had been talking to the sheriff, and they'd met a madman, a mad astronomer who had apparently burned down his own tower. And so Saloon had wanted to know where this tower was. Unfortunately for me, my players happened to be blind, and so though the tower was very, very clearly pointed out on the map, they'd assumed it was much farther. It was so close that it was actually right across the street from the tavern, and so when he had gone, "Hey, would you mind pointing out where that tower is?" the woman had responded, "The tower's right across the street. What do you need me to point it out for?" It was then that Saloon attempted to cast a message to the barbarian above, who had decided to crawl his way to the ornate door and see if he could spy through the keyhole. And the message said, "Hey, get out of there. She's down here now, and I don't know how long I can distract her." And he heard her. He heard him, of course, but he decided instead to see what he could see. And standing there on the other side of the door, deeper into the room, holding a goblet of silver that spilled red splotches onto the ground, was a tall and slender woman, her skin so very, very pale that it was almost translucent, her body more primal than that of a standard person, like a cat, sleek and powerful. Her hands ended in what almost looked like sharp talons. Her hair pitch black. And her teeth sharp and pointy, as traces of red spilled from her, contrasting dramatically along her pale, translucent skin. Now, in my world, there are stories, books even, bards who tell tales of creatures of the night. One had even written a story about Dracula. Not Dracula. Now that would have a D in it. And we need these stories to be distinct and different, don't we? Dracula. So they knew enough about him. Ah, Cookie. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have 2 more minutes on this voice. And the sight of this woman made the barbarian's blood run cold as he snuck his way out down the stairs. Saloon had taken the woman to the door and had said about his interest in astronomy, and she had misunderstood him and began asking him what his star sign was and asking him all about astrology. Apparently it was something that excited her very much. And though he would insist, no, astronomy and astrology are different, she kept saying, oh, that makes you such a Draco, doesn't it? And she went, oh, and I am a griffin. What do you think that means about me? And he goes, well, I don't know. The stars don't say anything about you. And she goes, no, they do. You're an astrologist. And so ever since then, I've decided to bully that man with the idea of astrology. Enough so that even the players get in on it and they start going, oh, Saloon, what does my star sign mean? What is my star sign? Do I have a star sign? Can you tell me all about them? And he gets upset. It's great. But the barbarian's able to sneak out. And eventually, they each are able to leave. Oh, 1,600. Ain't that surprising? Thank you so much for the follow. They all stumble out into the mud, into the rain that never seems to stop. Now with more questions and answers. But at least they know the tavern keeper never came back. And so instead, they decide to make their way over to the guards. Assuming that the guards would have more information. After all, good morning, Moreau. They had tasked the guards the night prior with finding the tavern keeper and giving them a vial of something foul. And so, if the guards have been doing their job, surely they'd have some information by now. Morning, Lumi. Lovely to see you. Congratulations, Pinky. Enjoy your beer. Hi, Juice. Good morning. I hope you're having a lovely morning, Juice. And chat, go check out Lumi. They're lovely. So, the players had gone back to the guard station, the sheriff's office, if you will. And upon reaching there, realized that the guard captain wasn't there. Thank you. I hope I can lull you to sleep then. The guard captain was missing. Instead, sitting at the desk was a halfling they'd seen the night prior. They asked after the guard captain, which no one had seen them. And then they asked after the vial. And the man behind the desk said it had been stolen. Of course, my players were suspicious. The night before, they had seen one of the guards rob a downed body. And so they didn't trust them. And of course rolled for an insight check. But it seemed true. The vial had been taken. And as they asked more questions, being like, well, who has it? Where'd it go? Who would have had it? The halfling pointed to a newer guard and said, well, he was the last to have it. And the guard seemed really flustered by this, being like, yeah, I'd given it to the captain, and the captain would have taken it and put it back into the guard's quarters and stored it in the locked chest back there where we keep our evidence. And when they looked into his intent, they only found him being fully honest. Too bad, Gibbets, I can't help you with that. And so, oh, you hate being sick. I hope you feel better soon. Take a slow day today. So they'd asked him, hey, look, we believe you're innocent, that you didn't lose the vial. Why don't you show us where it would have been kept? And it was allowed. One player had their internet die. So they were stuck out front. While another player went back with the guard to check on the guard's quarters and the evidence box. The last player who was there instead went to go talk to the madman that they had spoken to before. He'd been warned that if he were to upset the madman and he was screaming again, the guards would throw him out. Thank you, brain fart. So he went to the madman and asked him more questions. Asked him about what he'd seen and if he had any additional, tools or anything, or any notes that he had left over. The madman seemed insistent he had tried to burn it all. Seemed very, very insistent that it all needed to be burned. And the player had said, well, I can go back to the tower and make sure everything is burned. And that seemed to placate the madman. And he gave the player a key he had hidden away in his sleeve and told him to go there and burn everything. Make sure it was all gone so there'd be no connection to the eyes in the sky. While that was happening, Prissa had gone with the guard to the guard's quarters and begun her little investigation. She snooped around a little bit, looking around to see what she could find. Oh no, Moreau. Why do they commit so much crime? And when she went into the guard area, she first checked the door to see if there'd been forced entry, and rolled so poorly, I felt a little bit bad. She had a +3 to investigation, and she still kept rolling below 10. And so, of course, her looking at the lock on the door only found the usual scratchings and gouges of a drunk man with a key. Good morning, Warrior Cat Fan. I hope you're doing well. Further in, she again rolled low, trying to look in the quarters, and everything seemed in a bit of a state of disarray, but more like a college student dorm than a place that had been ransacked. And then she made it to the chests. The guard opened one after she convinced him to do so. And she began to look through the locked box. Found various items from various crimes, but didn't find any remnants of the vial they were looking for. And when she opened the next chest full of prisoners' belongings, she found star charts and notes that the madman had made, as well as a gold coin purse Thank you for the follow, Senria. Senrin. Senrina. Found the golden purse had been taken from one of the players before. She did her best to distract the guard that was with her, causing a minor illusion behind him, and then passed the notes and the coin purse to the goblin she carried around on her back in a bag, and Grimjaw tucked away the things into the bag. And she made... Oh, it's a little ad break. Alright, lovelies, we're going to take a little ad break real quick. We'll take a little ad break real quick. Yes, Nova, I'm discussing our campaign. Actually telling about how he passed off the stuff from the chest to the goblin in the bag. Alright. Give me 1 second while we take a little ad break here. I'll be right back. While I stretch my legs. Then we'll keep going. 1 sec. The same person cursed me as well. My belly also hurt. That could have also just been the amount of grape soda and wine I drank last night. Now where were we, lovelies? Oh, so tired. I left some in the break room. Didn't you see it in the break room, Vanya, with all the other little snacks that I left out for the mods? Did nobody show you the break room yet? Remind me to show you the break room later. It's okay. Someone stole the wine. I bet it was Aura. Vanya, you should spray him later. Make sure to spray him. Good morning, Sora. Alright, where were we? So, Prissa had just passed off all the items that she'd stolen from the prisoner's belongings box to the goblin on her back. Yeah, Sora. Had stuck it away, and then made a show of closing the box. So when the guard did turn back around, he'd assume, oh, yeah, no, she's closed the box, she's done, there's nothing we gotta worry about yet. He hasn't gotten the rattle yet, Nova, you have to be patient. Oh, where were we? Right. And so, she went with the guard back to the hall, noticed Saloon was there, and Saloon followed the guard out. Pressa stopped and let the footsteps of Saloon mask her own noises as she hid back, relying on the guard not to notice her. Which the guard didn't. Instead, she turned to the madman in the cell and brought out the notes. And the madman seemed placid at first, relaxed almost, as having told Saloon to burn the rest of his things had kind of set his mind at ease. But Prissa began showing him the star charts. At first it was fine, but then as it went on, and the drawings became more erratic and more complex and more, well, chaotic, the madman prisoner began panicking and screaming and moaning and yelling. And this did alert the rest of the guards, who were confused why she was back there, as they had sworn they had seen her, go forward and leave. But they came back and dealt with the madman, as Prissa and the rest made a quick escape before they could be held accountable. They returned to the inn, the tavern, had lunch as one of the players joined, and made plans to go to the tower on the outskirts. And I think that's where I'll leave it for this time. And we'll pick back up there next time. Because my tummy is starting to hurt. And it's getting a little hard for me to focus. So for now, we'll find something else to do. We'll continue the story there next Monday. Gina's on a Shark Week. It's true, chat. It's true. So I think we can round off the stream with some little Minecraft. What do you all say? Some smooth, soft gaming. We spend a little time building and mining. I definitely don't have any ginger tea. But I will be going by the Asian store today. It's an international Japanese, Korean, Chinese store. And that should help with, finding myself some lovely little meds. I mean, I could try to eat myself. But I think I will pass on that one. Thank you kindly. You want to go with me? Ben, you can come with me. Pick out snacks at the break room. I'm sorry we don't get to the part, Nova, where the goblin gets his rattle. I will just mention this. There is a part where they find a lockbox, and the goblin is very insistent on keeping the lockbox because he likes the box. He likes having things in his lockbox. So he asks for a rock. And when given the rock, he puts the rock in the lockbox and shakes it. Because the best thing about the lockbox is having things in the lockbox and hearing the sounds they make inside of the lockbox. It's not the things inside the lockbox that matters. It's the fact that there are things inside the lockbox that matters. Isn't that right, chat? It's not what's in your box that counts. It's how you count it. You don't eat the box. What do you mean I have a dog ear? I only have human ears. See? No dog ears. This world is going to be called Goblin. No, the box only has a rock. One rock. Hi, crucified. When will I wear wings? Oh, mountains. I will live in the caves. Never Vanias. Have I worn wings? I have worn wings. I know the meme, but I refuse to engage. Hi, crucified. How are you doing? There's something so funny to me about you just saying engage. Come on, Gene, engage. I can't be talking as me myself. Just engage with it, please. Glad to hear. Hi, Snumbie. Vanya, are you in a good mood? Because I'm going to be playing Persona 4. Is that what's happened? Morning, Goose. I haven't seen the Nintendo Direct. Should I watch that? screaming? Why'd you sob? I assume you're like one of those raccoons that always does the little noises. Oh, let's check it out. Sounds very interesting. Wonder if I can find bamboo nearby. Or what, if any, things I'm gonna find here. Mm-hmm. Oh, I did something very, very similar. When I was younger, I'd been in a Walmart. And on the Walmart had been a PS1 that you could play games on. And connected to the game in the PS1 was Legend of Dragoon. I think it'd been a PS1, it might have been a PS2. Legends of Dragoon. An RPG turn-based game where characters could turn into these dragon-type fighters. Well, I had a PS2 at the time. And so, yes, it was on the PS1, but you can play it on PS2. So, I had a PS2 at the time, and had finally ordered Legend of Dragoon from eBay, wanting to play it. Had not realized that you would need a PS1 memory card, which was fine. I played the first game, the first disc, over and over again until I could make it in one go, all the way to disc 2. And the game said put in disc 2. So I pulled out disc 1, put in disc 2. You must have save data from disc 1 to continue. And so I sat there, thinking of all the progress that I just lost. And I had no way of getting a PS1 memory card. And never played it. So I know exactly what 1/4 of that game is like. The rest of the game could be anything. But I only know what that 1/4 is like. I imagine it's good. But I'll never know. Womp womp. Legend of Dragoon? Doubtful. I don't think they ever will. I mean, they're not gonna remake Radiata stories, are they? I might play Radiata stories at some time on stream. Have you all ever heard of Radiata stories? Oh my god, I love this little mountain village. Radiata stories, you can definitely do on an emulator, which is how I might do it. Thank you, thank you. Radiata Stories is a game with, let me look it up real quick. Alright, chat. For a game on the PS2, what do you think a a good amount of recruitable NPCs for your party would be, let's say you have like a random selection of NPCs that you can find to recruit to your party. Each one being unique, different in what they're able to do. How many NPCs do you think would be in a game like that? Yeah. Keep guessing. Let's see if we can get some more guessings. Oh, not minimum. Let's think. 177. 177 recruitable NPCs. Some of them are fully, partially locked out. Well, fully and partially locked out, depending on what sort of direction you choose. In a PS2 game, and the art still holds up. It's done in like a very drawn style. Even like the grass textures are like drawn so that like everything still looks fantastic. There's some blockiness and some funkiness with some of the animation, but very gorgeous. And some of them are garbage. Oh, some of them are absolute garbage. I think it's very funny how absolute garbage they are. Still all the man's everything. Mans doesn't get a thing. Not anymore. Good morning, Chaos. Alright. Avoiding the creeper. I think it's time to live in the caves. Yep, we're moving into the caves, chat. I think I have enough wood to live in the caves. Oh, this is going to be a tight one. But I may not leave this cave structure. I can go deeper, but I cannot come out. Which this one's doable. Yes. Oh yeah. No, I totally understand that. RPGs are so hard to do these days. You want to get into Xenoblade? Understood. I have enough. I'll make it work. Don't want to know Minecraft fun fact? I do want to know Minecraft fun fact. What do you got for me? Mm-hmm. Really? Why'd they cancel it? is cool though. We do have a palm chat. We need iron. I need to find water. How is this really isn't going to work out for too long? Oh, interesting. Very interesting, actually. If I was iron, where would I be? There's a lot of light down there. Can you catch a bat? What would a bat even do for me? Oh, that's fair. You can always use a friend. I can always use a friend. Bat friend. Friend who's a bat. Bat friend. Friend who's a bat. Well. That's what I was worried about. I was trying to be as far away from the skeletons as possible. Can you be a bat? The bat? The Batman? Oh, why do you want to be the Batman? Do you also not have parents? Licensed vampire. Fair. You know, that's true, that's true. That tree grew so fast. Bruv. I've said crazier things. Oh, hello. Good morning, Lila. Trust me, it's happened. It has happened. And more than once. I'm good. How are you doing? Good to hear. Good to hear. Oh, it is so hot over here today. I don't know what's going on. One of my vents are being dicks. Can't believe there's no iron in this cave. It's crazy. Yeah, I go into a cave expecting there to be iron, but there's no iron. How dare it? Came from Hoshi. Oh. I'll tell Hoshi I say hi. How's Hoshi doing? I hope Hoshi's well. My voice sounds like a creeper. Yeah. Fair enough. Oh. I see. I see. I am, in fact, in your walls. And I do live in a canyon. Like a fuck-ass goblin, so you know. I mean, no, she's not far off. Thank you for the follow, non. You calling me a rodent? Funny, did I just get called a rodent? I don't know how I feel about this one. What do I do with this? Crazy. What do we do about this audio? Do we let this stand? Am I a chihuahua? I'll have to think about this one. I don't want to be a chihuahua. Good morning, Flower Cow. Good morning, Flower Cow. Your name is very nice and makes me happy. What a pleasant name. Good morning, Ari. How you doing? How are we doing today, lovelies? Y'all missed my D&D yapping, which this is gonna be so funny. Because somebody has been trying to make it to all of my D&D stuff, and they keep missing it. I feel so bad. You just woke up. Oh. Go back to sleep. How you doing, cuz? Morning, cuz. Good names, chat, good names, yeah. Y'all passed the vibe test, it's true. Oh yes, this morning we were doing D&D yapping. Cause it's dark. I like dark. I'll give you a little torch so you can see. Is that better? But yeah, I do some, every Friday I do some D&D lessons and teach about some part of D&D. I think this Friday we're probably going to be doing a mock D&D game, ASMR styles. And on Monday I talk about my campaign that I'm running from the week prior. D&D is fun. I may start running one-shots for viewers soon. But that's a lot of planning. I'm not sure I'll have the energy and effort. Yes, Vanya, one shot. Like that one game. I know I still need to play one shot, but I need to buy the new version. Thank you for the follow, Victor. How are you doing today? Oh, fine. Around like half an hour. Thank you for the follow. Greatly, greatly appreciate it always. No winner this time. I know there's iron down there and I need iron. Have a good day, Gibbets. Have fun at work. Oh, you don't know what Dungeons and Dragons is? Dungeons and Dragons is a story RPG game. What does a brush do? I want to make a lightning rod. That looks fun. Sorry, it's a story RPG game tabletop where characters help write a story while the DM, the Dungeon Master, Game Master, leads it. It's a lot of fun. Didn't have your earbuds in. Oh, 'cause they hate me. Every morning we do cozy vibes. Every afternoon we do chaotic vibes. So if you like chaotic vibes, come back in the afternoon for BMMSD. It is a role-play game, yes. And if you like cozy vibes, 3:30 a.m. MST. Oh no, he's got a gun. You know, that was gonna happen one day. It's okay. Evenings get chaotic vibes. Good morning to Chick Tries. How you doing today? Evening get chaos. Mornings get comfy. And right now we're in the morning. Am I perhaps chronically online? Rude. Did you sleep all right? Miss Tries. Now I'm curious about what you're trying. What do you try? Thank you for the follow, Ella. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Definitely not me. I am not an artist. No, that's why I left. Because I hit the wrong button instead of pulling out an item to block off the space like I've been planning to. I died to a creeper. Woke up with a sore throat, but otherwise comfy. Everything at least once. Really? Hast du Deutsch gemacht? Writing is lovely. Well, that sounds really cool, though. Sounds very, very cool. I will definitely have to. You know what? Do I not follow you? Let me take a look if I follow you. Let me come follow you. That way I can watch you try things. I think it's good to want to try things. Vanya, telling me the VOD from last night isn't published. We did media share. And you haven't published it? Crazy. Kidding. You know, I'm always appreciative of the time you spend to make sure I don't dox myself. Because I have more than once, and you've gone back through things and made sure everything was okay. Do a D&D ASMR. A D&D ASMR campaign. I do have a Discord, exclamation point Discord. It is an 18 plus Discord with age verification. Going through a third-party app. The app is for both my safety and yours. If it's something that you would not like to use, that is fine. but it will be required for anyone trying to join the Discord. I should write that down. Have that in the automated message. Fonny's adorable. Little cute little raccoon. And Mr. Eyes, you are most certainly correct. How can you know if you like anything if you don't try it? You aren't secretly a picky eater though, are you? Sorry, you just woke up. Let me leave you alone while you get ready for your day. Feel free to just hang out here and be as cozy as you can. Good morning, Pixel. How are you doing? There we are. Oh, look at that canyon in the distance. I don't know if that's fog or low render distance, but either way it's pretty. The world is a vampire. Oh, good to know. Have you ever been curious about the taste of seafood? I've dated a few vegans in my past and have learned to replicate the taste pretty well. No. I mean, if you're allergic to crab, yes. Shellfish, because I believe shellfish, that the imitation crab is not shellfish. But imitation crab is still, it's like a different fish. Imitation crab usually is a different kind of fish. So it still has the same fibrous thing, it's just not a shellfish. But it is still seafood. I don't know if it's monkfish or not. Which I do wonder if seafood and shellfish are a different allergy. Oh, we'll make you some chicken nuggets. One day we'll do cozy cooking. No, that's a lie. Haddock sounds right. That sounds right. I don't know why I thought monkfish. I could try to do cozy cooking, but I don't think it'd stay cozy. Yeah. I've already burned a burner or two. I'm a very good cook. I'm just, accident prone. It was the burner's fault. I forgot about rice. This wasn't my fault. That was ADD. You can't blame me for what ADD does. We all know that it's never my fault. Oh no, I forgot Vonnie didn't know about that. Nothing, Vonnie, it's fine. Okay, well, so at the time I didn't have a rice cooker. I was baking it in a pot. And I put the rice in the pot with the water like you do, and I set a timer, I think. But I don't think the timer actually got set. And so suddenly I smell this scent of what I can only assume was rice. But it wasn't like the normal smell of rice. And so Um, yeah. I go running out there. I'm like, oh, right. Rice. No, I don't think so, Pixel. I think it's somebody else's fault. Well, I mean, why is it a flat if it's not flat? So I'm supposed to burn it down so it can be flat, right? That's very well. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I worry, me too. Oh, hey, look, Lich Cave. Thank you for the stretch. Oh, and I forgot the. Thank you. I felt my shoulder pop with that one. Okay. I lack impulse control. Yay. My meds make it so I don't spend all of my money and commit crimes. Cozy crimes. I said I don't commit crimes. Cozy crimes. Like stealing blankets. Or arson. I've never committed. I have never committed arson within the statute of limitations. Yeah, and fire makes nice little poppy noises. Fire keeps us warm, and the poppy noises keep us comfy. So when I was a child, I was a little bit of a pyro. I think that pretty much ends the rest of that story. It's okay, flower. Little flower cow. Cow with the flower. Flower cow. Where'd my lush biome go? I hope you grow underground because I'm making a mistake. See, all I lit on fire was a drainage area. No, I won't be able to stream for too much longer. I'm sorry. You know, if I could, I would. A drainage ditch. You know, they have those ditches where it like kind of like digs down and yeah. And so, me and my buddy had found a container of lighter fluid, some old brush. We were like, I don't know, young teenagers. And we stacked up all of the different things into the drainage dish. Cement iodide. And just used the entire container of lighter fluid. and burned all the things. It was nice. It was too long ago for it to matter anymore. Hey, look, a geode. Wasn't that nice? Good morning, Nia. That is green. Wait a second. Me learn a thing would never. Don't accuse me of such monstrosities as flirting. I like this one vine growing here. I'm Andy. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope you're doing well. Well, lovelies, we're coming up on the end of stream here. Unfortunately, I do need to work. If I didn't have to work, I'd stay here all day. I'm doing good. But work calls, unfortunately. Streaming doesn't pay the bills yet. One day streaming might pay the bills, but until that day, chat, we will unfortunately need to find somebody to raid into. Let's see who we have that I can raid it. Oh, cute Delphi's nice. Wonder what they're doing. We'll check them out. Alright, we'll raid into them. Y'all say hi for me. I need to get going. I'll see y'all next time, okay? See y'all later today. We're going to be playing some indie horror games at 4 MST. Yeah, I said Delphi. We're going to raid into the little gremlin this time because they've raided into us a few times. And there we go. So y'all say hi. We'll do a little EP raid. Boop, 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 boop. Bye, Ocean Sweetie. Get that raid. Get that message. You ready? 5. Hi, Mama Ellie. Lovely to see you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye.